This is Anastasia Spicer, reading NN3. Speak? Will poetry speak? I want to scream. My throat is dry. My throat, silenced so long, is coarse. In books, I see that word I can't pronounce. In the faces of my friends, hiding in women's bathrooms. My grandmother was a seamstress in the factories. After the War of the Pacific, she was widowed with 5 children. Will poetry speak up? Let me tell you about the light burning my breast, that clouds my dreams, whose lace stays caught in my throat. Factories made of sounds. Factories made of mute women, factories made of gazes. From when the sun comes up until I return home, I carry that word inside me. And if poetry spoke, what would it be? How would it be able to tell of her rage? About this poem by Victoria Guerrero. NN3 is a poem that forms part of a collection entitled Uprising of the 20,000. I wrote these texts thinking about female textile workers, industrial work, and the enclosure of factories. The text establishes an analogy between the silenced voice of women and the questioning of poetry. Will poetry speak? In what poetry does not say lies its revelation and its revolt. In Vallejo's estruendo mudo, or mute roar, in that silenced shout, in those censured bodies, poetry stands as a vulnerable language, but at once utopian.
This is Honora Spicer reading a translator's note. We are sister translators. Our goal collaborating on this translation was to convey dignity and reverence towards the work of the seamstress. The series centers on the 1909 New York textile strike and 1911 Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, where the majority of workers who died were immigrant women. We attuned to how a stitch of detail composes and references a structure. The subtle translation made of, as in factories made of gazes, obviates how industrial work is dependent on the social relations it produces. Poetry appears as material presence and political action, in speaking up, as it rises against silence.
But there was something I was gonna tell you. Something funny happened today. But on the long ride home, I got lost in something. My thoughts just washed away. Right there on the tip of my tongue, right there on the edge of my mind. It's always the same old story, and all the thoughts that get left behind. But it was right there tongue. It was right there on the tip of my tongue. It was the time we were talking about that movie we saw the other night. Who was that bad guy? What's his name? We laughed about it. I saw your friend the other day. What's her name? We laughed about it. Got lost along the way. But it was right there on the tip of my tongue. Right there on the edge of my mind. It's always the same old story, and all the thoughts get left behind. But it was right there on the tip of my tongue. Right there on the tip of my tongue. There was something I was gonna tell you. Something funny happened today. But on the long ride home, I got stuck in traffic. And my thought just washed away. But it was right there on the tip of my tongue. Right there on the edge of my mind. It's always the same old story, and all the thoughts get left behind. But it was right there on the tip of my tongue. Right there on the tip of my tongue. It was right there on the tip of my tongue. It was right there on the tip of my tongue.
Welcome, my friends, to the Lo-Fi Lounge. I know Jerry O'Sullivan for a long time, but he is it's a relatively new venture, a band and an album they're recording. And I was lucky enough to hear some of the initial tracks from it, and it's just really good. And so I want to help promote a good new band.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Chris. And I should introduce you to, this is Jeff over here, who plays harmonica and sings in the band, Jeff Masters. And this is Steve Chazar, who plays drums.
Steve, my friend.
Now you guys know Chris Leroy.
Yeah. Good to meet you, Chris.
Yeah,
right on, man.
Yeah, it is fun to intersect. Jerry and I probably met,
like 10 years ago,
12 years 10 years ago. Yeah, 10. Another kind of related band had played at some facility where we were doing shows, a place called The Loft.
Yeah.
Squeaking Wheels or something.
Squeaking Wheels.
Oh, yeah. Great band. Great.
Yeah, and they were all teachers too. Like, how can everyone be a teacher? But And then, you know, the more I would meet, well, here's the bass player, but he's in these 5 other bands, and then here's Jerry, and there's but what was just riveting, and I'll just say it off the front, is 2 things. Jerry's voice is always was really dynamic to me. I always just liked the sound and tone of singing, and then just the choices of material that you perform. Is you make everything, to me, sound like it's a brand new tune.
Ah, thanks,
Fantastic.
man.
Great, man.
Thank you.
So tell me about this venture. Tell me when you guys met.
Well, if I could say, like, the sort of my initial thing for this style of this band, of the idea for it was, I was living in San Francisco for a couple of years. This is right around 1999.
Right.
And I saw R.L. Burnside. Have you ever heard of him?
Oh, yeah.
He passed away some years ago, but he was, you know, North Mississippi blues guy, kind of like Mississippi Fred McDowell, and there's Junior Kimbrough and those guys. And so I saw him play in San Francisco, right like a year before he died, maybe. And he had, you know, 2 electric guitars. One guy's in open tuning playing slide, and then there's no bass player. And his grandson was the drummer. And I just saw that, and there was no bass player. And I know that's not, I know other people have done that. I mean, that had, you know, obviously the White Stripes, and for years there's been bands that have done it. But just for, like, after that, seeing them in 1999, I knew I wanted to do something that sounded like, I wanted to explore the R.L. Burnside, even like just playing his songs, and kind of I just had to experience that sound. And so it took a while, and Jeff and I kept running into each other. We played in bands together, and we talk about doing it. Then we finally put a band together, and we're, you know, adamant we're not going to get a bass player, you know. Within a week, we caved and got a bass player, because, you know, you're missing that low end, you know.
Sure.
And then we played for a while, and then I had my son, and then that band only played a couple gigs, and it was still on 58s, but we didn't do a whole lot. We just played maybe twice, and then it kind of fizzled out.
Yeah, it didn't quite gel. And then he had his son, and
got real busy, and
that was the end of that.
Then we started it up again after about 5 years, and then I was playing with this guy named Brad, not Brad Lewis from CLAREMONT VOODOO SOCIETY, a different Brad. I was playing with this guy, Brad, and I was going to his house and working on his tunes, and Steve was the drummer of that band. And Steve had this strange drum kit that he made. And when we were warming up, getting ready to work on Brad's tunes, he and I would just be kind of riffing. And I heard him playing this homemade drum kit, and I was like, that's the sound. That's the drum kit that we need for this project. And so finally, I said, Jeff, you know, let's get together with this drummer. So it's just harmonica, electric guitar, and then Steve's weird homemade bamboo drum kit. I mean, I should let him tell you about it, but it's over here in the garage. But it records really well. And you want to tell him about it? But
yeah, we can get to that.
Yeah,
okay. But it's like, you know, it's got a cajon for a bass drum. It's got, did you make the tambourine? The snare is made out of a tambourine, right?
Yeah, with a drum head on top.
With a drum head. Yeah.
Wow.
And it's got bongos instead of toms. It has a doumbek, a Middle Eastern doumbek instead of a floor tom. But we didn't know this, but when we did a live album, it recorded really well.
Hair was dark and cropped at the neck.
what's inside. They never saw you through my bloodshot.
Christmas when the first time we played?
We first started playing together in December of maybe 2.5 years ago. A little less than 2.5 years ago, yeah. And
it clicked. I remember the first time getting together. I was like,
yeah.
It seemed like it was gonna be odd without a bass player, and then it was like, nah, I don't think we should even get a bass player. Like,
yeah,
because it just the sound between the three of us was really nice.
Yeah, I remember we played a couple songs together in my living room, and then Jeff's like, "Well, I guess we're a band."
But it reminds me a little bit of the Sgt. Pepper album cover. Is that why that was so famous? It was a quirky idea, and people spent hours and hours trying to make sure, figure out, well, who are all the people are in there, and who are the obscure people, and it in some ways was sort of the touchstone for the beginning of this sort of we are our culture. And as an album, Sgt. Pepper, which a lot of people now don't point to as the best Beatle album, but it certainly was the most important Beatle album. And a lot of it...
Important for albums.
Most influential album.
Right.
And a lot of it really was in that cover and these things of names and peoples and faces. But Beatles wanted certain people in there. They wanted W.C. Fields, or they wanted such.
Aleister Crowley.
Right.
Lenny Bruce. And
you'd love to be able to sit down with Dylan. So what do you think of the Beatles album cover? You probably said there's a lot of good names, a lot of good name dropping.
Where am I at in there? I think he started doing that to me. Dylan himself was the surrealism kind of thing he was doing in the 60s. And there's a song on... I've said it, like my favorite Dylan album, Bringing It All Back Home. It's Bob Dylan's Dream, where he laughs and he breaks the song up in the beginning. And he's just telling this crazy story about Captain Ahab and he goes to America, and there's Jesus is in there, and there's this and then he goes on to other albums, Desolation Row, and there's all these characters and historical people, a lot of biblical characters back then. But he's always, it seems like he's always kind of done that. But then he stopped doing it for a while. He moved away from that surrealist thing. Maybe it was just the state of mind at the time, but then now he's kind of come back to that.
And I just like the motion, the placidness of it, the backing vocals, and something that he's learned over these 1 million Frank Sinatra cover albums is this phrasing that now he now it came into him, is something that he developed as an appreciation for all these standards that he covered over time. Just your dog. He's just like Frank Sinatra. He's coming in at the end of my line. What's our dog's name? Look at
Rocky.
Nice.
Rocky. So was there another song that jumped out for you, Patrick, that you just really just felt close to?
The Goodbye Jimmy Reed. I just like the cadence and stuff of that. Just the sound of it. This album had a lot of blues in it. That I liked, and I liked the Mother of Muses, because, like I said, it mentioned, I've outlived my life and all the inspirations and that sort of thing, and give me more inspiration.
Here's a question I thought about when I was driving over, because, I mean, I hope he keeps making albums forever and ever and ever. But what if this was Bob Dylan's last album? Right. How would it change anything about how you perceive it, or would you make you rank it higher or lower, or satisfying or not satisfying? What if this is the last thing you were going to hear from Bob Dylan?
Sad, but I would be satisfied. I mean, I think he really pulled out all the stops for this album. I mean, it's been years since he's done the original material, and when he does, we get a great album.
I'm just trying to get to heaven before they shut the door.
Wait, saying this kind of stuff on my back pages, though, right?
Right.
He sounded like he's an old man when he's singing that song in a way.
That's what I'm getting at.
Right,
is that he doesn't treat this like this is his last album.
Yeah.
He's saying, I'm a creative artist, and when I have some songs to share with you, I'm going to do it. But it just seems like I think you're right, Patrick, that you can just see that he put his heart and soul into this album.
But I did feel a sadness, because thinking it could be the last album. When I was listening to it, it's hard, when you hear something like, if you care about him as much as, we do, and you hear something like I Contain Multitudes and stuff like that, you can kind of get misty eyed a little bit.
Who knows, all the bootleg series has all these extras and stuff he's done in the studio. It's just makes you wonder, how much of this stuff didn't make it on the album, or just how many other takes or other.
Sure.
It's just kind of, as fans, we're very lucky just to have the wealth of stuff that he releases.
Yeah,
I think we're good. I think we're good. If you haven't heard it already, audience, please check it out. It's available everywhere. We'll be back next week with I don't know what we're going to do.
Time will tell.
Thank you, everyone, for joining Dylan Box. Once again, I'm Ryan Harsch.
I'm Chris Leroy.
I'm Patrick Judy.
And we'll see you in the Dylan Box. Right? Got it.
Up all night, close to the brink. Close my eyes, I try not to think. Reaching for you, almost touched down. The moon won't stop wandering around. You look good, asleep in that chair. Faint expectations rise in the air. When you awake, I won't be found. The moon won't stop wandering around. Wandering around, all through the evening, never a sound. Come here, my child, won't you lay your head down? We'll stop this wandering around. You were right, I can't be read. Close that book, lay it down by your head. You were the story, you I was bound. The moon won't stop wandering around. No, my friend, time has been true. Everything right goes straight back to you. maybe in dreams we'll cover that ground. The moon won't stop wandering around. Wandering around, wandering around now. The evening, never a sound. Come, hungry child, won't you lay your head down? We'll stop this wandering around. If I pray and when I die, you can keep all these tears that I cry. One heart is lost, one will be found. So much for wandering around. Wandering around, wandering around now. To the evening, never a sound. Come, hungry child, won't you lay your head down, and we'll stop this wandering around.
We will fight you from the mountains, and we will fight you in the streets, and we will fight you in the valleys. You cannot take what isn't yours, and we will fight your goons and lawyers, and we will fight your Pinkertons, and we will fight your bought-off congressman. You cannot take what isn't yours. So and we will take you from your mansions, we'll burn your towers to the ground, and you will weep the whirlwind that you so you cannot take what isn't yours. So la da 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 da. Yes, we will fight you from our houses, and we will fight you in the streets, and we will fight you in the valley. You cannot take what isn't yours. No, you can't take